Well now, Mr. Potter, let's get started, shall we? If you'll kindly follow me.
Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So those of you who have been following my channel recently will know that I've been reviewing every Harry Potter video game. My last two reviews were for the PS1 Harry Potter games, the Philosopher's Stone and the Chamber of Secrets. Now we're going to be moving on to the next generation of Harry Potter console games, starting with the Philosopher's Stone, released in 2003, developed by Warthog Games. Now, this game is an interesting one. This game was actually released the year after the Chamber of Secrets game. The reason for this is that there was no Harry Potter movie in 2003, and EA wanted to fix some of the technical issues seen in Chamber, and make a game with a similar style, using pretty much the same concept as Chamber. The original versions of the Philosopher's Stone came out in 2001, so technically this game is a re-release, unlike the PS1 version, which was a more linear platformer. This game is actually an open world RPG with more of a sandbox style. This particular review is going to be for the Xbox version. I do own the PS2 version, and that version is practically identical, with the only major difference that I can notice being that the Xbox version has slightly better graphics. This is amplified by the fact that it's backwards compatible with the Xbox 360 and can be played in HD. But in terms of its overall gameplay and in-game technicalities, the PS2 version is practically identical, like I said. Just like in the PS1 version, it follows the story of the Philosopher's Stone very loosely.
No, sir. House was almost destroyed, but I got him out all right.
But compared to the PS1 version, which felt very disconnected from the movie and the book, in a good way in my opinion, this game definitely tries to follow the story a bit more closely. And a lot of the dialogue in this game is dialogue from the film.
And my name is Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask yours. Red hair and a hand-me-down robe. You must be a Weasley.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, and the game does have plenty of dialogue of its own, but I thought I'd mention it nonetheless. Unlike the PS1 version, where you get to start the game off already in Hogwarts, in this game you start off in Diagon Alley, where you enter Ollivander's shop to purchase Harry's wand. This acts as a tutorial where Ollivander gives you a few pointers and helps to introduce you to the overall controls and gameplay. The game is essentially a third-person action-adventure RPG with some basic platforming mechanics. The tutorial in Ollivander's shop basically gives you an introduction into the game's spellcasting, combat, and platforming mechanics, as well as informing you how to navigate the game. It's a pretty well made tutorial and I really enjoyed it. Once the tutorial is over, you get to go to Hogwarts. One of the things that you'll notice about Hogwarts right off the bat is that the castle is much bigger this time, with so many more areas and oddities to explore. I mentioned before that the game is an open world RPG, and in my opinion this makes a lot of sense for the Harry Potter series. You could literally spend hours exploring the open world of Hogwarts, hunting for collectibles and completing challenges, and the game's open world mechanics are really what set it apart from the older versions. As far as the overall gameplay goes, much of the game is spent with Harry going about his school days, completing lessons and learning new spells, as well as socialising with the other students and completing challenges and tasks for them. There are several lessons to undertake that each unlock a different spell for Harry to use. For example, you start the game off with Flipendo, the knockback jinx, that was introduced in the PS1 version, and this constitutes the vast majority of the game's combat. You simply allocate each spell to a particular button, and press that button to cast them. Flipendo can be used in both combat and general exploration, being used to activate switches and stuff. You can also knock certain enemies to the ground and stuff like that. As for the other spells you unlock, you have Alohomora, which is used to unlock doors to certain areas, as well as chests that obtain certain collectibles. There are quite a few locked areas of the game which can only be accessed using this spell. You have Lumos that can be used to light up dark areas of the game, as well as find secret passages and collectibles behind doors. This can be very useful. It can also be used to defeat ghosts and guy trashes by simply shining it at them. You have Spongify, which can be cast on certain spring markers on the ground. This can be used to reach high up areas in the game by bouncing Harry up high enough to reach them. This is really fun to do. It can also be used to help Harry defeat trolls, more on those later. You have Incendio, which is used to cut things, mainly ropes, to help remove certain obstacles and reach certain areas. This can also be used to stun venomous tentaculars. You can also use this to cut down certain tapestries from walls, some of which are purely cosmetic. Others actually have secrets and shortcuts as well as collectibles behind them. And finally you have Incendio, which was also in the PS1 version, which served a similar purpose in that game. This is used to burn things to remove obstacles, and once again to unlock certain chests. This can once again be used to defeat the venomous tentaculars, along with Incendio. There are so many different uses for these spells, and in addition to spicing up the game's combat, they do their bit to make the game a little bit more interesting and a little bit less repetitive. In order to learn each of these spells, Harry will first have to complete his class associated with it. Each class will have a challenge area that Harry will have to crawl through a hole to reach. Harry will have to figure out his way to the end of the area and obtain the relevant spellbook. Spells learned in the previous lesson will often be needed to progress through these areas. These challenge areas will be filled with certain enemies that need to be defeated, as well as puzzles which are quite fun to do, some more challenging than others. There's nothing insanely difficult about them, but at the same time they're not insultingly easy or anything like that. They're also quite varied, highlighting both the game's combat, puzzle solving, and platforming mechanics. Each of them has their own visual style and aesthetic, and all of them look pretty good. During these challenge levels there will be certain items and collectibles that will be locked off to you on a first playthrough, and will be unobtainable to you until you return later with the relevant spell needed to unlock them. This of course gives you an incentive to replay these levels later, and try to find as many collectibles as possible, seeing what you might have missed the first time. For each of these lessons your teacher will grade you on your performance. You can increase your grade by finding and collecting challenge shields. It's a pretty cool idea. Though as a result of this, it's impossible to get an A grade the first time, because in order to do so, you will have to obtain every challenge shield, and as I mentioned before, some collectibles are locked off to you on a first playthrough. This adds another incentive to replay these levels in order to increase your grade. It's fun to do for the most part, and I really enjoyed these levels. In addition to the spell learning classes, Harry will also have to attend potion class. Unlike the PS1 version where potions was very simplistic, this time there's a little bit more to it. During the class, Professor Snape, who for some reason looks like Lord Farquaad in this game, will task you with finding several potion ingredients for your next lesson. These ingredients can be found behind Hagrid's garden, near the edge of the Forbidden Forest. This area looks really beautiful and is fun to explore. You can find several different creatures here such as gnomes, doxies, bowtruckles, flobberworms, trolls, and several different types of creatures in this area that you will have to contend with and work past to obtain your ingredients. This is a lot of fun to do. Once again, just like in the challenge levels, these areas will contain certain items and collectibles that will be locked off to you on a first playthrough, and can only be obtained once you have the relevant spell to do so, again, giving you an incentive to replay these levels later. In addition to these levels, you have to attend flying class with Madam Hooch, just like in the PS1 version. This introduces you to the flying mechanics of the game. Just like in the other lessons, Madam Hooch will grade you on your performance, and thankfully in this lesson you can actually get the highest grade in one go by simply flying through enough rings in the time limit she gives you. Unlike in the PS1 version, this time you can actually unlock the broomstick for regular play.
Bit early for mail, isn't it?
But I never get mail.
Let's open it.
It's a broomstick.
That's not just a broomstick, Harry. It's a Nimbus 2000. You'll be able to fly anywhere around the grounds, but try not to crash into too many of the towers.
Seriously, flying your broomstick around Hogwarts during the free play sections of the game is awesome. It's one of those things that really helps to make the game feel like a honest and genuine open world RPG. You get to fly around the exterior of Hogwarts looking for collectibles and just generally having a lot of fun flying. Speaking of flying, just like in the PS1 version you have Quidditch matches. These are fairly simplistic and once again you basically fly through rings, try to catch the golden snitch while racing against another seeker. The game also has some stealth sections. Exploring the grounds at night is forbidden, so when you do, prefects will be patrolling the castle and the grounds. You have to tiptoe around, sneak past them and try not to be caught. You can use spells to distract prefects, as well as slow them down using stink pellets. These give you a huge advantage during these stealth sections. Some of these sections are more challenging than others. One particular section of the game has Harry using his invisibility cloak to sneak around the restricted section of the library. This is quite fun to do. All in all, the game's stealth mechanics are a lot of fun and you do kinda get a rush when you're sneaking around and running away from prefects, especially when you get just a narrow escape. In addition to these sections of the game, you also have sections that are more story driven. For example, Harry and Ron's ongoing feud with Malfoy, which takes up a portion of the game. This leads to some funny dialogue.
People only die in proper duels.
I can't believe you're going to do this, Harry.
You, go back to bed.
You have several of the main plot points from the movie, such as saving Hermione from the troll, encountering Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest, as well as the finale in the Forbidden Corridor in search of the Philosopher's Stone. The game has plenty of enemy variety. For example, you take on gnomes, imps, ghosts, doxies, fire crabs who crap fire, guy trashes. The game has several boss battles too, and each of them are very well done. For example, you take on the troll in the girls' bathroom, as well as some other trolls who act as sort of mini-bosses in the game. A venomous tentacular, there's actually a couple of these. You also take on the snare, which is basically a giant venomous tentacular in this game. And you also have an epic final boss battle where you take on Professor Quirrell and Voldemort. This is a much more challenging boss battle than the one in the PS1 version. Sadly though, for some reason they never added a fluffy boss battle this time. I'm not sure why. So as far as the overall gameplay goes, this game is pretty awesome. My only major issue with the gameplay is that the game's camera is pretty bad at times, and if truth be told, it's difficult to get used to. This makes some of the game's platforming mechanics really awkward and can even lead to some annoying glitches, such as the camera getting stuck behind walls. This happened to me a few times. This doesn't happen very often, but it can be a problem. And some of the story moments in the game, particularly the finale, seem a bit rushed to me, as if the developers ran out of time and just wanted to get the game over with. Speaking of the story, I mentioned in my review for the PS1 version, these Harry Potter games have become notorious over the years for producing some hilarious memes, most of them involving Hagrid. There seems to be a running joke in these Harry Potter games about Hagrid's overall negligence and incompetence, as well as how he constantly puts Harry and the other students in danger. Well, in this game they took it even further, to the point where they're not even trying to hide the joke. So there's a portion of this game where Harry has to find a rare ingredient for Snape's potion class called Moondew. Hagrid informs Harry that the only place he can acquire Moondew is in the Forbidden Forest. This leads to Hagrid in one of the creepiest, most inappropriate moments in the entire game, sending Harry a letter in the middle of the night.
Meet me in my garden tonight, and I'll take you to where it grows. That way you'll be safe. Hagrid.
So Hagrid tells Harry via a secret letter to break the rules, leave the castle in the middle of the night, sneak past all the prefects, and follow Hagrid into the dark forest alone. Seriously, this game makes me want to call Child Protection Services. But that's not even the worst part. Before leading Harry into the Forbidden Forest, Hagrid says this.
There's nothing that lives in the forest that'll hurt you if you're with me. Right then. Follow me.
So you feel safe in that regard. Sure, the forest is dangerous, but Hagrid will be there to protect you, right? Well, no. Instead, what Hagrid does is stand there and wait at the edge of the forest and let Harry go deeper in to do all the work himself. Where have I heard that before? So this leads to Harry having to go into the forest, fight off some dangerous guy trashes, and pick up his Moondew. You then return to Hagrid when he says this.
You want to be careful out here, Harry. Guy trashes sometimes roam the grounds at night. Big, horrible dog spirits. You'd better have your Lumos spell handy to scare 'em off.
I mean, seriously, this couldn't have been a mistake. Surely the developers were trolling us, but I digress. This area is actually where you encounter Voldemort in the forest, leading to a very weird cutscene where Hagrid speaks Firenze's dialogue from the book and movie.
Drinking the blood of a unicorn will keep you alive even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. But you have slain something so pure that from the moment the blood touches your lips, you will have a half-life, a cursed life.
Yeah, could you imagine Hagrid actually saying those things? It's just really weird in my opinion. So yeah, the game has its own quirky moments like that, and in my personal opinion, I find them really funny and memorable. I mentioned before that the game has several collectibles. There are plenty of them in the game. First of all, you have Bertie Bott's Every Flavour beans, just like in the PS1 version, and these serve a particular purpose. During certain sections of the game, Harry will be able to visit Fred and George Weasley, who have set up a shop in a disused bathroom. They have plenty of interesting things to buy, such as rare wizard cards, stink pellets, as well as several other collectibles. Speaking of wizard cards, they can be found scattered all over the game in chests. Some of them are out in the open and quite easy to find, others are in more discreet locations. Some of them will be locked off to you until you acquire the necessary spell to obtain them. One incentive you have to find these is that for finding a full set, you get an extra health bar. There are 6 health bars in total, and if you can find all the cards in the game, you can max out Harry's health. This can really help in the final boss battle. You can also view these cards in your Folio Magi, and you even get a short bio on each of the characters or creatures on the card. If you struggle to find them all, there are various students around the castle who will be willing to swap cards with you to help you find the ones you still need. This is a pretty cool feature. You also have a potion vial that Harry carries with him in the game. This can be filled with Wiggenweld potion at particular cauldrons in the game. So all in all, this game is pretty awesome. It helps that the overall visual aesthetic of Hogwarts, as well as the game's overall graphics and presentation, are absolutely fantastic. This game looks great for 2003, and playing the game in HD on my Xbox 360 makes it look even better. The game also has an epic soundtrack from Jeremy Soule, with many of the same tracks used in the PS1 version, and there are even some new ones here. In my opinion, this game is an absolute blast to play, and me personally, I give the Philosopher's Stone a solid 8 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned for my next review where we're going to be looking at the sequel, which actually came out before this one. Yeah, it's complicated, as well as more retrospective video game reviews. Thanks for watching and God bless.